The village lay hidden beneath the edge of the dark wood forest, a place where sunlight barely reached the ground and shadows seemed to whisper secrets to anyone who passed. Lyra walked along the narrow path, her cloak pulled tight around her shoulders, the hood hiding most of her face. She had lived in this village for 12 years, careful not to draw attention, careful to hide the one thing that had changed her life forever: the bite mark on her arm. She touched the mark lightly beneath her sleeve. It was nothing to anyone else, a faint scar. But to her, it was a chain she had worn silently for all those years. The mark was the memory of a night she barely understood, a night when a powerful wolf creature had chosen her for a reason she could not yet comprehend. Since then, she had learned to live quietly, to avoid strong magic, and to stay invisible to those who might notice the faint pulse of power hidden beneath her skin. That morning, the village had seemed normal, quiet. Children ran in the dirt streets, women hung laundry in the sun, and men repaired roofs or worked in the small fields at the edge of the woods. But Lyra felt the unease under her skin, a vibration in the air that made the hairs on her arms rise. Something was coming, something powerful. She ducked into the narrow alley behind the blacksmith's shop. The air smelled of smoke and iron. Lyra's brown eyes scanned the horizon through the small gap between two walls. Movement caught her attention, large shadows slipping through the trees at the forest's edge. Wolves. Not ordinary wolves, but the kind with glowing eyes and unnatural speed, the kind that villagers whispered about late at night. They were rogue wolves, dangerous and unpredictable, driven by hunger and dark magic. Lyra's heart beat faster, but she did not run. She could not. 12 years of hiding had made her careful, but it had also made her ready. She took a deep breath, remembering the strength she had learned to keep hidden. The first wolf lunged at the village. Lyra stepped forward instinctively. Her hands glowed faintly in the moonlight, though she barely understood why the magic answered her command. The wolf froze, its glowing eyes locking on her. Then, with a sharp snap of her fingers, she sent it crashing back into the trees. The villagers screamed. Doors slammed. Parents pulled children into their homes. Lyra knew she had revealed something, though only a glimpse. But the mark on her arm itched under her sleeve, as if warning her that more eyes might see it soon. A second wolf appeared, larger than the first. Its teeth glinted like silver under the sun. Lyra's body moved before her mind could command it. She dodged, ducked, and raised her hands, the faint pulse of magic forming between her palms. She could feel the power of the bite mark, deep under her skin, awakening in response to danger. The wolf yelped and fell back into the shadows, as if burned by an invisible flame. Lyra's chest heaved. Her secret, her hidden strength, had shown itself, and though no one had seen the mark itself, she felt a tremor of fear. If it had awakened, others might sense it too. When the wolves finally fled, chased by some unknown force, or perhaps her own awakening magic, the villagers cautiously emerged. A few glanced at her with suspicion, some with awe, but no one dared speak. Lyra pulled her sleeve down tightly over her arm, hiding the faint scar beneath her cloak. Her heart beat fast, but not entirely from fear. Something inside her had stirred, something she had long tried to keep buried. That evening, the village gathered around the central fire for the weekly market celebration. Lanterns flickered in the gentle wind, casting shadows that danced along the walls of wooden huts. Lyra moved silently through the crowd, her eyes scanning faces, avoiding any who might look too closely. She felt exposed, as if the wolves had been only the first sign of a much greater danger. From the edge of the forest, a figure emerged. Tall, broad-shouldered, and moving with a power that seemed to shake the very ground beneath his feet. His hair was dark as midnight, and his eyes burned with a strange, piercing light. Lyra froze in the crowd, instinctively drawing her hood lower. It was him. No one had seen him for years, not since the last war between the packs had ended. His presence was legendary, both feared and admired. Some said he could kill 100 men with a single strike. Others whispered that his power was so great that the earth itself obeyed his command. Lyra had always thought of him as a story, a shadow in the night, a force she would never meet. And now he was here, standing at the forest's edge, looking toward the village, as if he could see into every hidden corner. Lyra's breath caught. She wanted to turn, to run, to vanish into the shadows. But something held her in place. Her hand instinctively brushed the scar beneath her sleeve. The mark itched and burned faintly, as if sensing the presence of the Alpha King. The villagers whispered among themselves, afraid to approach. The Alpha King walked slowly, every step measured, his gaze sweeping over the people until it fell on Lyra. She felt the weight of it, a look so intense that it seemed to pierce through her cloak, through her carefully hidden secret, and reach into her very soul. A low, commanding voice broke the silence. "Show yourself." Lyra's legs shook. She wanted to hide completely, to melt into the shadows. But something in his voice, cold, sharp, yet compelling, made her pause. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she stepped forward from behind a stall, her cloak falling open just enough to reveal her arm. And then it happened. The bite mark, the scar she had hidden for 12 years, began to bleed. A faint, red line appeared along her skin, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Pain shot through her, not entirely physical, and her heart pounded with fear. The Alpha King's eyes widened, just slightly, and then narrowed with recognition. He took a step closer, his boots silent on the earth. "You carry it," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "After all these years, you carry it still." Lyra swallowed hard. I do not know what you mean," she whispered, though she knew she could not lie to him. Not really. The mark pulsed under her skin, hot and alive, as if it were calling out to him, revealing every secret she had worked to hide. The villagers stepped back, unsure what to do, leaving only the two of them in the flickering firelight. The air seemed to thicken, charged with something old and powerful. Lyra could feel it in her chest, in the beat of her heart, in the rise of her pulse beneath the bite mark. The Alpha King's gaze never left her. "You have hidden from me, from your destiny, from your power," he said slowly. "But hiding does not change what you are, or what you were meant to be." Lyra felt a chill run through her body. For 12 years, she had believed the bite mark was a curse meant to isolate her, a dark secret she must carry alone. And yet, standing before this powerful, terrifying man, she began to wonder if it was more than a curse. Perhaps it was a key that had brought the Alpha King to her tonight. The wind rustled through the village, carrying the scent of wet earth and smoke. Lanterns swayed, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Lyra's heart thudded painfully in her chest as she realized something terrifying and exhilarating. Her carefully hidden life, her 12 years of solitude, was over. The Alpha King took another step forward, his dark eyes never leaving hers. "You cannot run from this," he said. "Not tonight." The blood on her arm seemed to flare, warm and alive. And Lyra felt a strange pull toward him, both fear and fascination twisting together inside her. The mark had hidden her for years, but tonight it had chosen to reveal her. And in that moment, as the firelight flickered across their faces, Lyra knew her life would never be the same. Something ancient and unstoppable had awakened not just within her, but in the presence of the Alpha King. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The wolves, the villagers, the trees themselves, waited silently, and somewhere deep within the shadows, Lyra felt a voice in her mind, soft yet commanding. "Your destiny begins tonight." Her eyes met his once more, wide with fear, awe, and something she could not yet name. The bite mark on her arm burned like fire, glowing faintly under the sleeve, and for the first time in 12 years, Lyra did not try to hide it. Not from him. Not tonight. The Alpha King reached out, and the forest seemed to tremble with the promise of something neither of them fully understood yet. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. The blood on her arm pulsed with life. The shadows of her past were no longer hers to hide. And in that moment, everything changed. The moon hung low over the darkwood forest, casting silver light on the village where Lyra had spent most of her life hiding. Her arm still burned where the bite mark bled, and though she had tried to cover it, the Alpha King's piercing gaze had seen everything. She could not deny the truth now. KL, the Alpha King, stood at the edge of the village square, silent, yet commanding every movement in the space around him. Villagers dared not step closer. His presence felt like the weight of a storm pressing down. Yet beneath it, there was something softer, something curious that pulled at Lyra in a way she had never felt before. Lyra's chest heaved. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I only wanted to live quietly. I never wanted this." Kale's eyes softened for the briefest moment, though they were still sharp enough to cut through stone. "You think this was ever a choice?" he said. His voice was low, smooth, and carried authority. "The mark chooses. You have carried it for 12 years, hiding from what is, not from what was meant to be. Not from what was meant to be. Not from what was meant to be." Lyra's fingers pressed against the scar beneath her sleeve. Her magic stirred again, faint, like a heartbeat, and she shivered. "But it's dangerous. I cannot control it. I have tried to hide it from everyone, even from myself." KL stepped closer, his shadow falling across her feet. "And yet, here you are, standing, stronger than you know, more than a girl hiding from shadows. I have felt the mark from miles away tonight. It called to me. Do you understand that? It is not just a scar, it is a signal, a warning, and a promise." Lyra's head spun. All her careful planning, all her hiding, seemed pointless in that moment. For 12 years, she had built walls around herself, walls that not even her own magic could penetrate. And now, this Alpha King, this legendary figure of power and fear, had walked into her life and torn them down with nothing more than his gaze. "You don't understand," she whispered again. "I've lived 12 years without anyone knowing, without anyone touching it, noticing it. Please, I don't want to be hunted." Kale's gaze hardened, but it was not anger, it was intent. "Hunted? No. Protected. I do not hunt what belongs to no one but destiny itself. And this mark, it belongs to me as much as it belongs to you." Lyra froze. She had heard whispers about the Alpha King's magic, his unearthly connection to forces no one dared speak of. But her own mark, it had always been hers, alone. The thought that it might tie her to this man, to him personally, made her chest tighten. "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Kale knelt slightly to bring his eyes level with hers. "Because it is time. You cannot run from this forever. Lyra, the wolves tonight, they were only the beginning. The mark is waking. Your power will not remain hidden. And I..." He paused, a faint shadow of hesitation crossing his features. "I need to see what it means, fully. Only together can we understand it." Lyra's heart raced. His words were heavy with meaning, more than she could bear. 12 years of solitude, fear, and hiding suddenly. It felt like a fragile dream shattered by reality. She had imagined being discovered. Yes, but never like this. Standing in front of a man whose presence alone could command life and death. A cold wind swept through the village, rustling the leaves in the square and stirring the fires in the lanterns. The bite mark pulsed again under her sleeve, warmth spreading along her arm. It burned, but it was not painful. It was alive, and it was demanding recognition. I don't know if I can, she said, her voice faltered. I don't know if I'm ready. I've spent all these years running. Kale finished for her. His voice was quiet now, almost gentle. You cannot run from what you are. And believe me, hiding has not made you weak. It has made you stronger. But strength alone will not be enough. You will need guidance, and I will guide you. Remember, I will guide you. Remember, remember, remember. Lyra's knees threatened to buckle, but she forced herself to remain standing. The truth in his words was undeniable. She had survived years of fear and solitude, but now, the mark was alive in a way that demanded attention. And the Alpha King, he was no ordinary man. You're serious, she whispered. Deadly serious, he said. His gaze held hers, unwavering. Lyra's mind raced. She wanted to say no, to stay hidden in the village, to retreat into shadows and solitude. But the pulse beneath her skin quickened with every heartbeat, calling to something ancient and powerful that she had barely begun to understand. She began, then stopped. She could not speak the words. She could not voice the truth that part of her wanted to follow him, wanted to know the meaning of the mark, wanted to understand what she was truly capable of. Her fear and her longing collided in her chest. KL seemed to sense her hesitation. The choice is yours, he said, but the wolves will not stop at your village, and the mark will not rest. Decide quickly, Lyra, before the world decides for you. She nodded slowly, knowing she could not refuse. Her life, her power, and the secrets she had carried for so long were bound to him now. And though fear trembled in her chest, so did something else, something she had not allowed herself to feel in 12 years. Hope. The villagers watched in silence as Lyra followed KL toward the forest's edge. His presence was both terrifying and comforting, and she could feel the pull of his power, like a tide against her very soul. The trees seemed to part for him, the shadows bending in acknowledgement of his authority. They walked in silence for a while, the only sounds the crunch of leaves beneath their feet and the distant howl of wolves. Lyra's thoughts were tangled, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and something she could not name. She wanted to ask questions, to understand why the mark had chosen this moment to reveal itself, but the words stuck in her throat. Finally, Kael stopped at the edge of a clearing bathed in silver moonlight. Ancient stones formed a circle here, remnants of a time long forgotten. The air was thick with magic, old and potent. Lyra could feel the hum of power beneath her feet, the energy of something both dangerous and beautiful. This is where you begin, Kael said. This mark. It is not just a scar. It is a key. And tonight, it will show us its first secret. Lyra's pulse quickened. She could feel the bite mark pulsing under her sleeve, warmer than before, almost alive. Her heart pounded with anticipation and fear. She had hidden from this power for 12 years, and now it demanded to be acknowledged. Kael stepped closer, his shadow falling across her, his eyes locked on hers. Do you trust me? He asked, his voice quiet, but commanding. Lyra swallowed hard. I don't know, she admitted, the words trembling on her lips. I've never trusted anyone with this before. Calm, 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 calm. Then you will, he said softly, because hiding from it will only make it stronger. You must face it. Face yourself. Lyra nodded again, unable to speak. The clearing seemed to shift around her, the moonlight flickering, as if acknowledging her decision. She felt the bite mark beneath her sleeve flare, the warmth spreading through her arm and into her chest. It was alive, insistent, and no longer content to remain hidden. A distant howl echoed through the forest, low and warning. Lyra's heart leapt into her throat. The mark pulsed harder, a rhythm matching her own heartbeat. And then, as the wind swept through the clearing, she felt a presence behind her, not Kael's, but something else. She turned slightly, but saw nothing beyond the trees. Yet the pull in her chest, the fire beneath her sleeve, told her she was not alone. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. Kael's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, grounding her. "Do not be afraid," he said. "The mark is yours, but it is also part of something greater. Tonight, you will see why." Lyra swallowed, trying to steady her breath. 12 years of hiding, 12 years of fear, and now, the truth was unfolding before her. She did not yet understand what the mark meant, what her power could do, or why the Alpha King had come for her. But she knew one thing. Her life, the life she had clung to for so long, was gone. And the mark would not let her go. The clearing was alive with moonlight, silver and pale, spilling across ancient stones worn by time. Lyra's breath came in shallow gasps, as the bite mark on her arm pulsed with a strange rhythm, almost as if it were alive. Kael stood beside her, tall and commanding, yet there was a softness in his eyes that contrasted with the intensity of his presence. He watched her carefully, as though measuring the distance between fear and courage. "Do you feel it?" he asked quietly. "The power beneath your skin? It's responding to the mark. You cannot hide from it any longer." Lyra swallowed hard, her gaze fixed on the scar that had defined her life for 12 years. She felt warmth spreading from the mark through her arm, then across her chest. I feel something," she admitted, voice trembling. "But I don't know what it is. It's too strong, too strange." Kael nodded, stepping closer, placing his hand lightly near hers, though not touching the mark directly. "It is both a gift and a challenge," he said. "It has chosen you for a reason, Lyra. And tonight, we begin to understand why." Lyra's heart raced. She had spent 12 years hiding from everything that might reveal her secret. And now, under the moonlight, with the Alpha King beside her, she realized that hiding had ended. There was no turning back. "The forest itself is watching," Kael continued, voice low, almost a whisper. "There are forces here older than any of us, and they sense the awakening of your mark. You must remain focused, or they will overwhelm you." Lyra took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She clenched her fists, feeling a faint glow rising beneath her skin, spreading like liquid fire. Her fear pressed against her chest. But so did something else. A thrill. A strange sense of possibility that she had never felt before. "Why me?" she asked again, her voice small. "Why now, after all these years?" Kael looked at her steadily, his eyes reflecting the silver light of the moon. "Because it is time. Because you were always meant for more than hiding in shadows. And because you carry what many others cannot even see." Lyra's hands trembled as the glow beneath her sleeve grew stronger. She felt the power building, as if the mark were trying to speak through her, trying to show her what she had been capable of all along. A low hum vibrated in the air around them, almost musical, almost like a heartbeat shared between the forest and the mark. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows beyond the clearing. Lyra stiffened, her pulse quickening. It was a wolf, larger than any she had seen, with silver eyes that glowed like embers. Its fur shimmered faintly under the moonlight, as though woven from the night itself. Kael's eyes narrowed. "It is a sentinel," he said. "One of the guardians of the old magic. Do not be afraid, Lyra. It will test you, but it will not harm you if you prove your strength. Lyra's stomach twisted with fear. She had fought rogue wolves before, but this felt different. There was intelligence in the creature's eyes, an understanding that went beyond instinct. It circled her, slow and deliberate, watching her every movement. I don't know if I can, Lyra whispered, stepping back instinctively. The glow from her arm flared brighter, almost burning through her sleeve. Kale placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Yes, you can, he said firmly. Trust yourself. Trust the mark. Trust the power that has protected you for 12 years. Lyra closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She reached inside herself, touching the pulse of energy that had always been there, faint and hidden. Slowly, the warmth from her arm spread outward, filling her chest, her back, and her legs. The glow grew, bright enough to illuminate the clearing, and the sentinel wolf froze, watching her with what felt like approval. Good, Kale said softly. Now step forward. Face it. Her legs shook, but she obeyed. She moved into the center of the circle, feeling the pulse of the mark grow stronger. With every step, the wolf circled her once more, then stopped, sitting on its haunches and staring directly at her. The air was thick with tension, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. Lyra raised her hands instinctively, and a faint shimmer of energy radiated outward. The sentinel wolf tilted its head, then let out a low, approving growl. The hum in the clearing intensified, vibrating through her body, through the stones beneath her feet. You see, Kale said, you are stronger than you realize. This is only the beginning. Lyra's chest heaved. She felt a mix of fear, exhilaration, and something she had never admitted even to herself: pride. 12 years of hiding, of running, of fear. It had all led to this moment. And for the first time, she realized she was not weak. She was capable of power beyond what she had imagined. The sentinel wolf rose to its feet, moving closer to her. Its eyes glowed brighter, and Lyra could feel the energy between them, connecting her to something ancient and wild. She took a cautious step forward, letting the glow from her arm extend toward it. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and the wind swept through the clearing in a fierce gust. Lyra stumbled, the glow of her mark flaring uncontrollably. Shadows stretched and twisted around her, forming shapes she could barely comprehend: faces, hands, and figures that seemed to reach for her. Kael moved instantly, placing himself between her and the shadows. Focus! Lyra, he shouted. Do not let fear control you. Let the mark guide you. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, not from pain, but from the overwhelming intensity of the moment. She took a deep breath and let the energy from her mark flow through her. The glow spread outward, touching the shadows, and slowly, the shapes began to retreat, dissolving into mist. The sentinel wolf let out a low howl, a sound that echoed across the clearing like a song. Lyra felt her strength returning, her confidence growing. She realized then that the mark was not a curse, it was a gift. A connection to something greater than herself. Something that had chosen her for a reason she was only beginning to understand. Kael stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Do you feel it? He asked. The bond between you, the mark, and the forest? You are part of something old, something powerful. And tonight, you have proven that you are ready. Lyra nodded, her chest still heaving. She had faced fear, power, and the unknown, and survived. More than survived. She had begun to embrace the strength she had hidden for so long. But even as relief washed over her, a cold unease settled in the pit of her stomach. She sensed another presence. One darker. One older than the sentinel wolf or the forest itself. It was watching, patient, and waiting. What is it? She whispered. Kale's eyes darkened. "Not everything reveals itself so easily," he said. Nah. There are forces here older than any of us, and some of them do not welcome your awakening. You have passed the first trial, but the next will be far more dangerous." Lyra swallowed hard. Fear and excitement battled in her chest. She had learned something tonight. Strength, courage, and power were within her reach. But she also realized that the mark had drawn attention that might not be friendly. The wind shifted again, colder this time, carrying whispers through the trees. Lyra shivered, though her body was still alive with the energy of her mark. She glanced at Kale, who watched her closely, eyes sharp and alert. "You are ready for what comes next," he said. "But it will not be easy. The curse is not yet fully understood. It will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Lyra's heart pounded. 12 years of hiding, of fear, and now the first step toward understanding the truth of the mark was behind her. But the real challenge, the trial that would define her fate, was still ahead. The clearing fell silent, the forest holding its breath. Lyra felt the bite mark pulse again, stronger than before. As if aware of the presence lurking in the shadows. Something waited for her, ancient and patient. And she could sense that the next trial would demand all of her courage, all of her strength, and all of her trust in the Alpha King beside her. Kale's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, grounding her. "Whatever comes," he said softly, "we face it together." "You do not face it alone." Lyra's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of fear, awe, and a new understanding. The mark on her arm throbbed, warm and alive, as if acknowledging his words. She had hidden for 12 years, but now hiding was impossible. Her destiny, her power, and the path ahead had begun, and she could not turn away. The shadows in the clearing shifted again, darker this time, moving toward them with deliberate intent. Lyra felt the pull of the mark, stronger than ever, and knew in her heart that the next trial was about to begin. The forest was quiet, almost too quiet. Lyra could feel the tension in the air, a thick weight pressing down on her chest. The bite mark on her arm pulsed, bright under the moonlight, as though it were aware of the danger approaching. She walked cautiously beside Kale, whose steps were silent and deliberate. The Alpha King's presence was like a shield around her, yet she could sense the storm that waited in the shadows. "We're not alone," Kale said quietly, his voice steady. "The shadows have grown stronger since your awakening. There are those who do not want the mark to reach its full power." Lyra's heart pounded. She had faced rogue wolves before, even the sentinel wolf in the clearing, but this was different. The air was thick with magic, dark and oppressive. Every leaf, every stone, seemed to vibrate with an unseen presence. She felt the mark on her arm flare in response, warmth spreading through her chest. "I can feel them," she whispered, voice trembling. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Good. That means you are ready. The mark senses them too. It will guide us through what comes next. But you must remain focused. Fear will weaken you, and hesitation will cost you." Lyra swallowed, trying to steady her shaking hands. 12 years of hiding had taught her to be cautious, but now hiding was no longer an option. She had to face this power, and whatever was waiting in the shadows. The path led them to a ruined temple, half buried in overgrown roots and moss. Its stones were carved with symbols older than any history she had learned in the village. Magic thrummed in the air, heavy and alive. Lyra could feel it in her chest, in her legs, in her very bones. The bite mark pulsed violently, a heartbeat of fire beneath her sleeve. "This is where you will be tested," Kyle said. "The temple holds the power of those who came before. The mark will guide you, but you must confront it yourself." Lyra nodded, swallowing hard. She had trusted Kale enough to follow him into this place, but the weight of the unknown pressed down on her. She felt both fear and anticipation, her chest tight with the mixture. As they stepped inside the temple, the shadows shifted. They moved like living things, curling along the walls, slithering across the floor. Lyra's pulse quickened. The mark on her arm burned brightly now, warmth spreading like liquid fire, filling her with both strength and uncertainty. Suddenly, shapes emerged from the shadows, figures tall and dark, with glowing eyes that reflected the moonlight through broken windows. They did not speak, but their presence was heavy, pressing against her mind. "You must face them," Kael said, his hand lightly touching her shoulder. "The mark will protect you, but you must trust it." Lyra drew a deep breath. She could feel the energy of the mark responding to her will, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She lifted her hands, and a soft glow radiated outward. The shadows recoiled slightly, hissing as if sensing her power. "You are stronger than you know," Kael whispered. "Believe in yourself. Believe in the mark." Lyra closed her eyes, letting the warmth from the mark flow through her. She focused on her breathing, letting her fear fade into determination. Slowly, the glow extended further, surrounding the shadows in a circle of silver light. The figures shifted, uncertain, then slowly began to dissipate, dissolving into mist that drifted toward the ceiling. Her legs trembled, but she remained standing. The temple was silent again, the air lighter, though still charged with magic. Lyra opened her eyes and looked at Kael, who studied her with a mixture of pride and calculation. "You've passed the first part," he said. "But there is more. The mark does not reveal its full power easily. It will test you further, in ways you cannot yet imagine." Lyra nodded, though a part of her wanted to collapse with relief. The warmth from the bite mark spread across her chest, reminding her that the danger was not over. She had faced the shadows, but the trial was only beginning. "Why me?" she asked quietly, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Why did the mark choose me?" Kael's eyes softened for a moment. "Because you are strong. Because you survived when others would have fallen. Because the mark senses something rare within you. Courage. Willpower. Heart. You have lived 12 years hiding, and yet here you are." Lyra's heart ached at his words. She had spent so long believing she was weak, that the bite mark was a curse meant to isolate her. And yet, Kael's words made her realize that it was not a curse. It was a gift. A test. A connection to something far greater than herself. The temple floor trembled suddenly. Lyra staggered, gripping a stone pillar for support. From the shadows at the far end of the room, a figure emerged, a being darker and larger than the previous shapes, with eyes that burned like fire. Its presence pressed against her mind like a physical weight, and she could feel the bite mark pulse violently in response. "This is it," Kael said, his voice calm but commanding. "The next trial. Face it. Do not run. The mark will guide you." Lyra's chest pounded. She felt fear, yes, but also a strange exhilaration. This was what she had been hiding from all her life. This was what the bite mark had prepared her for. She squared her shoulders and lifted her hands, letting the glow from her mark extend outward like a shield. The figure advanced slowly, its steps silent but deliberate. Lyra could see its power, dark and ancient. But she did not falter. She focused on the warmth of the mark, on the rhythm of her heartbeat, on the pull of her energy connecting with Kael's presence beside her. "Remember," Kael said, his hand brushing lightly against her back. "The mark is part of you. Do not let fear control it. Trust yourself." Lyra's hands glowed brighter, silver light radiating outward, touching the edges of the darkness. The figure hesitated, then stopped, as if uncertain how to respond. Lyra felt the pull of the mark, stronger than ever, guiding her movements, lending strength to her body and courage to her heart. "You can do this," Kael said softly. "I am here. We face it together." Lyra inhaled deeply, centering herself. She felt the energy of the mark flow through her, connecting with the ancient power in the temple. The figure began to waver, its form flickering like smoke in the wind. Lyra stepped forward, letting the glow expand, filling the room, filling the shadows with light. The figure let out a low, rumbling sound, like thunder rolling across distant mountains. It lunged forward, but Lyra did not move back. She stood firm, letting the mark guide her, letting the light flow through her hands and into the shadowed form. The figure froze, then slowly began to dissolve, disappearing into mist that swirled around the room before vanishing entirely. Lyra's knees shook, but she remained standing. The temple was silent again, the air lighter, though still charged with the echoes of magic. The bite mark on her arm glowed faintly now, calm but alive, as if acknowledging her victory. Kale stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You have done well," he said. "The shadows were only the beginning. Your power is strong, but the curse, if you wish to call it that, is far from over. There is more to come, more to test you, more to teach you." Lyra nodded, her chest heaving. She had faced the darkness, and she had not run. She had embraced the mark, her power, and the guidance of the Alpha King. Yet even as relief washed over her, a cold unease settled deep in her chest. She sensed another presence, one older and more dangerous than the temple, than the shadows, than anything she had faced so far. "The next trial will not wait long," Kael said, his eyes dark and steady. "And it will demand everything from you: courage, strength, and trust. Are you ready?" Lyra looked down at the bite mark, glowing faintly under her sleeve. She felt its warmth, its power, its connection to the Alpha King beside her, and to something ancient that waited just beyond sight. She swallowed hard, her fingers brushing against the scar. I think so," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. She did not yet understand all that was coming, but she knew she could not turn back. The wind rustled through the broken stones, carrying a whisper that seemed to echo from the depths of the forest. Lyra shivered, though her body thrummed with the energy of the mark. Something ancient was awakening, waiting for her next move. Kale's hand remained on her shoulder, steady, grounding her. "Whatever comes," he said softly, "we face it together. You do not face it alone." Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time in 12 years, she did not feel alone. She felt power, possibility, and a strange bond that tied her fate to the Alpha King in a way she could not yet fully understand. The shadows outside the temple seemed to shift, darker and more deliberate than before. Lyra felt the pull of the mark, stronger than ever, and knew in her heart that the next trial, the true test, was waiting. The forest was alive with whispers as Lyra and Kale stepped beyond the ruins of the temple. The air was thick with magic, heavy and expectant, as if the very trees were holding their breath. Lyra's bite mark pulsed softly beneath her sleeve, no longer a secret or a curse, but a guide, a connection to power that had chosen her and now revealed itself fully. Kale's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, steady and grounding. "This is the final trial," he said. "Everything you have faced until now has been preparation. What comes next will test every ounce of courage and strength within you." Lyra nodded, though her heart thudded in her chest. 12 years of hiding, of fear, of solitude, had led to this moment. She had embraced the power of the mark, faced the shadows, and survived the temple's trial. Yet she knew the true challenge had yet to come. Something older, darker, and more powerful than she could imagine was waiting. They entered a clearing where the moonlight fell like silver rain, illuminating a circle of stones etched with symbols older than time itself. The air shimmered with energy, and Lyra felt the pulse of her mark synchronize with it, beating like a second heartbeat. "Stand in the center," Kael instructed, his voice low but firm. "The energy here will test you. Merge with your mark, and awaken the full power within you. Do not fear it. Embrace it. Lyra stepped forward, her feet moving almost of their own will. The moment she reached the center, a wave of energy surged through her, warm and fierce, filling her veins with light. She gasped, staggering slightly, but Kael's steady presence beside her grounded her. The shadows from the surrounding trees began to gather again, twisting and rising, forming shapes more solid and threatening than ever. Lyra's pulse quickened, but this time, the fear that had gripped her for 12 years did not take hold. Instead, a fierce determination rose within her. She was no longer the girl who had hidden her mark, trembling in the dark. She was a force awakened, guided by her own power and the bond she shared with Kael. Focus, he whispered. The mark is part of you, but it also belongs to something greater. Trust it. Trust yourself. Lyra closed her eyes and let the energy of the mark flow freely. The warmth spread from her arm across her chest, her back, her legs, filling every fiber of her being. She felt the rhythm of the forest, the pulse of the stones beneath her feet, and the presence of the Alpha King beside her. All of it merged, and a wave of silver light erupted from her, washing over the shadows. The dark figures recoiled, twisting and shrieking as the light touched them. Lyra's hands glowed brightly, the mark's power fully awakened. For the first time, she felt in complete control. Not of the magic alone, but of herself, her fear, her strength, her destiny. The largest shadow figure stepped forward, towering over her, its eyes burning like molten fire. It exuded a power older than time, ancient and relentless. Lyra's heart pounded, but she did not step back. She raised her hands, letting the glow of the mark expand, radiating through the clearing, filling the air with silver fire. You are ready, Kael's voice said beside her. Do not hesitate. You are not alone. The figure lunged, but the light from Lyra's mark met it head-on. There was a flash of energy, bright enough to make the shadows waver. Lyra felt a surge of strength, of courage, and of clarity. She was not the frightened girl hiding her mark anymore. She was a force of destiny, chosen for a purpose greater than she had ever imagined. The shadow shrieked and faltered, then began to dissolve, turning into mist that drifted upward, scattering in the moonlight. Lyra felt the energy of the mark settle. No longer chaotic or demanding, but steady, warm, and alive, a part of her. A part of something far older, far wiser. She sank to her knees, exhausted but exhilarated. The clearing was calm again, bathed in silver light, the air soft with the pulse of magic. Kael knelt beside her, his hand resting on hers, grounding her with his presence. You did it, he said softly. The trial is over. You have faced the shadows, embraced the mark, and emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined. Lyra looked down at her arm, where the bite mark glowed faintly. It no longer burned, no longer pulsed violently. It was calm, alive, and radiant, a symbol of her strength and her destiny. For the first time in 12 years, she felt at peace. I can feel it, she whispered. I understand it now. The mark, it's not a curse. It's who I am. It's my power, my choice, my responsibility. Kael smiled, a rare softness in his expression. Exactly. And now, you know why it chose you. You have strength, courage, and heart. That is why the mark belongs to you, and why it will guide you. But more than that. His gaze softened, almost tender. It will connect you to what you were always meant to be, and to whom you were always meant to be with. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She had felt the pull toward him since the moment he saw her mark, but she had never fully understood the bond. Now, in the quiet aftermath of the trial, she realized that their connection was more than guidance, more than protection. It was destiny, intertwined, and undeniable. Kale extended his hand. Stand with me, Lyra. We face the world together, not as master and follower, but as partners. The bond between us and the mark within you is part of something far greater than either of us. Are you ready? Lyra hesitated for a moment, looking into his eyes. 12 years of fear, solitude, and hiding had shaped her. But now, she was no longer the same girl. She had faced shadows, embraced her power, and stood stronger than ever. With a deep breath, she took his hand, letting the warmth of the bond flow through her, steadying her, connecting her to him, to the mark, and to the destiny waiting beyond the forest. I'm ready, she said, her voice strong and certain. Kale's expression softened, a faint smile brushing his lips. Then we move forward, he said. Together, they stepped from the clearing, the forest around them alive with the quiet pulse of magic. The shadows had not vanished entirely, but they no longer threatened her. She had faced them, and in doing so, she had faced herself. The path ahead was unknown, filled with challenges, responsibilities, and discoveries about the mark, her power, and the forces that had waited for her awakening. But Lyra did not fear it anymore. She had embraced her strength, her courage, and the bond with the Alpha King beside her. As they walked through the forest, Lyra felt the warmth of the mark beneath her sleeve, steady and alive, a reminder of what she had faced and what she had become. The forest whispered around them, alive with magic, acknowledging the bond that had been forged through courage, trust, and destiny. You've changed, Kale said quietly, his gaze fixed on her. 12 years of hiding, and now, you are stronger than even I imagined. The mark has chosen well. Lyra smiled faintly, the first true smile she had allowed herself in years. I feel different, she admitted. Not just stronger, but whole. The mark, the forest, the trial. It's all part of me now. And you. Kale's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability crossing his features. And I am part of you, he said. We are bound. Not just by destiny, but by choice. Together, we will face whatever comes. Lyra nodded, feeling a calm determination settle over her. The darkness, the trials, the fear, they had shaped her, but they no longer controlled her. She had embraced her power, her mark, and the bond with the Alpha King. Together, they would face the future, stronger, united, and ready for whatever awaited them. The moon rose higher, bathing the forest in silver light. Lyra and Kale stood together, their hands joined, their connection undeniable. The shadows that had once threatened them lingered at the edges of the forest. But they no longer intimidated her. She had faced them all, embraced her mark, and accepted her destiny. For the first time in 12 years, Lyra felt free. Free from fear, free from hiding, free to embrace her power, her courage, and the bond with the Alpha King. The forest whispered around them, acknowledging the rise of a new force, one born of destiny, strength, and trust. And in the quiet, radiant moonlight, Lyra knew that her life had changed forever. The mark on her arm pulsed softly, steady and alive, a promise of power, courage, and a future she had only just begun to understand.